Hey everyone, welcome. Good morning. Thanks for joining us here for another live stream on the Riffomonas YouTube channel. If you are joining us, I would love it if you would go ahead and leave a comment here in the comment window, wherever that shows up in your view of the channel, and we can get to know each other a little bit better. I'm always amazed by the breadth geographically of people joining these live streams. And so it's always great to have you and to see that really international pull that we appear to be having on this channel. So welcome. In just a little bit of background about today, I have been in the midst of a marathon proposal writing session and pulled a bit of an all-nighter last night and haven't had a lot of time to prepare for today's episode. And so you're going to get this a little bit raw and very much tired. If you can't tell already, I'm kind of fumbling over my tongue. So it's all good because this is what I want to be doing. After spending a lot of time working on a grant proposal, it's always nice to do something, visual, to create something. I guess I've been creating a proposal, but to create something visual and to create something with you all. And believe it or not, the proposal I was writing was actually to support doing more things like this. So it was a lot of fun. I guess at times it was a lot of fun, but this is going to be more fun. All right, very good. So we've got Rents here from the Netherlands and Mark joining from England. Mike's in the UK and Philip's in the UK as well. I don't know if my American colleagues aren't up yet or if they're busy in the lab or wherever they're doing their jobby job types of stuff. So if you haven't already, I really encourage you to go to riffomonas.org and subscribe to our mailing list. This will get you set up to get a weekly email from me. I think one went out about 15 minutes ago, if the timing worked well, where each week I send out an email describing a visualization. The one we're going to be talking about this week is this one, and talk about the visualization and how I'd go about recreating it, kind of at like a 30,000 foot view, right? And there's not much of any code in here. Maybe I mentioned some types of functions I would use, but there's really very little syntax in here, right? And that sets us up well for this session, where I then go in and try to recreate this visualization, right? And this visualization comes to us from the Financial Times. I found it because I get a weekly email, I think it comes on Saturdays, describing visualizations related to climate change. And so this came from Nasos Styliano. Sorry, Nasos. There's a few too many vowels in the wrong places for my tongue to work right. But anyway, he talked about a story that they did this week on climate and the climate summit at the UN. And this visualization appeared in their article. And he goes into a little bit of detail about how they made that plot. It's not a lot of detail, so don't go in expecting them to kind of show you all the stuff. Some weeks include more data than others. But I thought this was an interesting plot. And when I sent it out actually to the newsletter, I got more feedback on this visualization than I've gotten on any other visualization. People were really eager to critique this visualization. Great to have you, Patrick from Kenya. Great name. So as you look at this plot, let's think about like what works and what doesn't work for people, right? And so the first thing that people picked up on was that the left panel and the right panel have different x-axis scales, right? So on the left, it goes from, I believe, 1950 to 2023. And on the right, it goes from 1850 to, I think, 2023, right? They basically leave out on the left plot the first 100 years worth of data. If I had to guess, that is probably because either the data aren't very reliable, or that they're just, the annual gigatons of CO2 is quite low. And so you'd basically have a long flat line off to the left, and then you would be compressing the stuff in more modern times so that you couldn't kind of see what's going on up here as well. That's my guess, right? That was one thing people caught. The other thing people caught was that they would have preferred to see the annual gigatons on CO2 as a per capita number, right? So China has like 3 times the number of people as the US. And so you might expect China to have 3 times the amount of global emissions as the US, right? And so I thought those were both fantastic comments. I picked up on the x-axis. I hadn't picked up on the per capita. So certainly it's something to think about. One other thing that as I've been doing more and more of these data visualizations related to data journalism, one of the things I picked up was that they have a legend, a lot like we have in science, right, across the top or sometimes along the side. And it would have been nice to perhaps have those labels somehow embedded in the plot so that my eyes don't have to like go back and forth trying to figure things out, right? Something I notice about the color scheme is that they're lumping China and US in the similar, I don't know my color terms, but they're both like reddish, orangish colors, whereas like EU, Russia, and UK are kind of greenish, bluish colors. And so maybe that works, right? So if you want to know kind of European-like countries are in that green color, right? So that's easy to tell. And then the comparison of like China to US, those are more similar. So I guess maybe the color scheme works, but it seemed weird to have two sets of similar colors as well as then the other, right? So anyway, maybe think about your own critique of this figure and what you like and don't like. And so this is going to be the figure we're going to create. So although there's all those critiques, this is the one I'm going to create. One of the other things that I liked about this plot and looked forward to making in R is that this doesn't have a white background, right? So much of the stuff we get from like the New York Times or the Washington Post or in my own scientific work, the background is white, right? And so this has kind of like a, I don't know, like a linen type of colored background, which is, I think, a unique style that tells me it's from the Financial Times, right? So that's cool. And it's an area plot, right? And so oftentimes I do not like area plots. I generally do not like area plots in my own research because it becomes very difficult to compare the relative magnitude of things, right? And so, it's hard to know, I don't know, like how does China down here for its cumulative historical share compare to EU 27, which I think are the 27 EU countries? How does that compare to that up here, right? Are they the same size or are they different? Because they're not right next to each other, or perhaps because they're not shown as points on like a percent scale on the y-axis. We wouldn't see them right next to each other, right? So the interpretation gets a bit challenging when we stack things up because our eyeballs like to have a common baseline from which to measure a distance, right? Whereas here, I'm comparing this distance to this distance, right? So if they were like right next to each other, it'd be much easier to compare the heights of those wedges. And the same would go for over here, right? So anyway, those are some critiques and some things. I guess what I was trying to say about stacking is that I would probably do this, or will do this, with geom area, which, because I don't like stacked bar plots, I generally don't do area plots. And so it'll be good to make an area plot and use that geom area. And so that'll be fun. All right, so let's get into it. Along the way, if you have questions, feel free to holler. Philip says, to my eye, the Russia zone looks like an overlap between the UK and U27. So Russia is like this middle green, right? And so it's right. So to his eye, I think what he's saying is that like, if you put both the EU27 and the UK at like, say, like a 50% transparency or like a Venn diagram and then had them overlap, that you would get something kind of like this, right? And so that, I could imagine that perception then causing one to think like, oh, this is like some type of average of the UK and EU, right? So that's certainly something to be mindful of, versus if they'd picked, like I said, 5 different colors and then gray for other, right? I probably would have gone for 5 different colors. I've had to kind of talk myself into accepting this color scheme, but whatever. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and come over to Positron. And we've been testing this out in recent weeks. And let's go ahead and I'm going to close this bottom display. We talked about in the last week how I was able to get the console into the upper right corner. Yeah, the upper right corner here. And kind of how to get going. So I don't have a directory created for this yet. So I'm going to start from scratch here in the Welcome tab. So we'll go ahead and do New Folder. And let me get rid of my face. And so this is going to be an empty project. Or actually, let me go back. So I said I didn't do R project because I was thinking RStudio uses R proj files. And I don't have an R proj file, but I'm going to be doing an R project. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's go ahead and do R project. Next. And the name for my new R project folder. Let me see. What was the slug on this email? Visualizing. Let's call it like I'm going to call it the global CO2 budget. So we'll do global CO2 budget. And I want this to live off of my desktop. All right. I'm not going to initialize the Git repository because I'm only going to be making the R script as well as the visualization. But I think if I were to do a bigger project, I would go ahead and initialize the Git repository. So then I'll go ahead and do next. I'm going to be using R451 and use renv to create a reproducible environment. So I'm going to hold off on doing this. But know that this is something that's there again if you're thinking about doing a project that's perhaps more than making a single plot. Maybe we'll revisit this in a future episode. And then go ahead and do create. It's been created. Where would you like to open it? I'll say the current window. And voila, it's there. Cool. So that was a nice little walkthrough, I think, for creating this untitled script. I'm going to go ahead and save this to be global CO2 budget.r. And there we go. I've got this extra window down here at the bottom that this is where the console had been living. And so now it's empty. So I'm going to go ahead and click this X to get rid of it. I also have over here on the left the File Explorer. I'm going to go ahead back to this version of the file. And I'm sure I've got it somewhere, but I'm going to save this image to my directory. So if I go to desktop, global CO2 budget, I'm going to put it in here. And I always like to then tag onto that original. And this is a PNG. So we'll save that. You have the extension PNG at the end, and the standard is JPEG. I'm going to use PNG. And let's see if that showed up there. And so now I've got my PNG file here, and we're good to go. I don't, as I talked about, I think last time or the time before, you'll notice that these two tabs, this one that's open now is italicized, whereas this one is a regular font. And so what that means is that if I try to open a third file, this italicized name, this tab will go away. But if I double click on it, you'll now see that it's a non-italic regular font. And so this will persist, say like when I open up my my version of this image, right? Okay, let's go ahead in here and we'll do library tidyverse. I feel like that is probably a little small. So let me go ahead and make that a notch bigger, and I'll go ahead and close the Explorer for now and drag that over. So hopefully that's a little bit easier for you all to see. Great to have you, Trevor, from Virginia. Great. And let's come to the terminal to figure out how big our file is. And if we do ls, we can then use that file function that we have on a Mac on global CO2 budget original. Actually, it's telling me it might actually be a JPEG rather than a PNG. Let me open that up in let's see, where are you? Desktop, global CO2 budget. I'm going to open this up in preview. And why don't I go ahead and, let's see, I should be able to export, yep, as a PNG. So it is a PNG. Okay. And let me go ahead and I'll just put this in my desktop. Oh, sorry. The desktop, global CO2 budget. Okay. So I think it is a PNG, but let's just make sure. And then if I come back over here, does anything change there? Yeah, so now I think before it was a JPEG, now it's a PNG. We see that it's 700 by 700, and it's still there. Okay, so it is a square image. And so if I do ggsave on global CO2 budget.png, I'll do width equals 6 inches, height equals 6 inches. Then when I finally make a plot, it will be saved at the same aspect ratio as this file here. Great to have you, Jackson, joining from Germany. Rents asks, do you have a standard regarding file map structure for a new project? I do. And if you look back through my old videos, there are a couple on project organization. What I like to do so I like to have everything in the same project directory. These weekly videos are pretty small projects, right? Normally what I'll have is like a directory for maybe raw data, a directory for process data. Maybe I'll put both of those directories in a single directory called data. I'll have a directory for scripts. I'll have a directory for figures. I'll have a directory for perhaps my writing, if I'm like writing a manuscript, right? And so and then I'll have like a README and a license in here. The other place that you might, if you're interested in this type of thing, if you go to github.com/schlosslab, not everything here is public for whatever reason. Let me show you something. Oh, we put repositories for all our papers in here. And like, I don't know, here's one that is a paper I partially developed on YouTube here, but this is on GitHub and basically shows you kind of the directory structure that I use for my projects, right? It's like there's code, there's data, there's figures, there's stuff for Slurm and for config files for working with things like a snake file, right? So maybe I'll go ahead and copy and paste this into the chat so you all can see that if you're interested in that type of thing. That reminds me as I'm copying and pasting that I should go ahead and copy and paste over the link to the stuff we're working on today. And I'll go ahead and get the Financial Times link in here as well. And it's not letting me paste that for some reason. Let me try again. And let's see if this will paste. I think it's too long to paste, so I'm not gonna worry about that. Let's see, read this in your browser. Yeah, I think the URL is too long to paste in here. So I'll let you grab that link off of the email, off this second link that I also sent out. So, all right, let me clean this up a bit and we'll get going. All right, so we've got our R script. We have the PNG set up. Let me go ahead and minimize that so we have more real estate here. Let me get my beautiful face back on here. So we need data. And I think maybe one of my hotkeys is putting up this trademark. All right. So we need to get data. And again, if we come back to here in the Financial Times, they mention that there's a source, the global carbon budget. And I don't remember if there's a link in here to that. Oh, right here, right? So to chart emissions, we use data from the global carbon budget right here, right? So let's go ahead and open that up. And I'll go ahead and drop that link in the chat as well. All right. And when I was writing that newsletter, I noticed that there's a link in here for data archive. So let me make this a little bit bigger. Click on that. Then you'll see that there's a variety of different bits of data here. And what we want is this global carbon budget v 2023. So I'm going to go ahead and download this. So I'll go ahead and click on that. And maybe I'll get the dataset descriptions while I'm at it. And so that'll download as well to my downloads directory. And let's come back here and I'll open up my downloads. And if I highlight those, I think I should be able to drag them over into my Explorer. And so now they're there, as well as if I look back in my Finder, they're in the directory as well, okay? So this Explorer tab I find to be really useful. I don't know that you could do this type of drag and drop like I'm doing as easily in RStudio. So that's one of the things I really like about this VS Code type of environment. All right, but it knows it's an Excel file, but I can't open it. So I need to come back and open up the Excel workbook to get a sense of what I'm looking at here, right? And to make sure it's the right data. All right, so there we go. And let me make this as big as I can so you all can see it. So I notice there's a bunch of header material up here, right? It says on the second tab that all values in billions of tons of carbon per year, GTC per year for the globe. If you want billions of tons of carbon dioxide per year, multiply the numbers below by 3.664. And so in the visual, this is in terms of CO2, not in terms of carbon, right? So we'll have to be sure to multiply by 3.664 to get what they had. And there's some stuff in here about billion tons and petagrams, all sorts of things, gigatons, so whatever. And then information about where the data came from. So, so there's a variety of tabs I'm noticing. And so I think this is the summary. Nope, this is, well, I'm not really sure where I was. Let's see. Maybe I was looking at the ocean sink data. So I don't want the ocean sink. I want the global carbon budget. And so this is showing the global carbon budget aggregated across years. This is historical by category, terrestrial sink. Let's see, I want the data by country. So maybe I'm in the wrong place. Ocean sink, terrestrial sink, cement. All right, so maybe this isn't what I want. So let's come back and national fossil carbon emissions. The third link down is what I wanted, I think. So let's try that instead. And again, coming to downloads, and then bring this into my directory here. Now let's open this up. I'm going to go ahead and close the global carbon budget file, make this bigger. And we have the summary with kind of who you would cite, the territorial emissions, and yeah, I'm pretty sure this is what we want. So the countries, so again, there's a header. We have that same thing about multiplying by 3.664. And on the column A is the year, and then the countries going across. And so the countries are, it's the same country name in both. And if we come over to the right, I remember when I was putting together the newsletter, noticed that there were some of these groupings of countries, right? So there's like the EU 27. So I don't have to figure out who is the EU 27 and then make my own column. I've got the EU27 here. There's also North America, which if I come back and look at these, so it's China. And we could also then calculate an other column as being the sum of those columns subtracted from the world total, okay? So hopefully that makes sense. And that's gonna be a strategy. So to get this in, we're going to have to use readxl. So let's do that. Let's get going here. So come back over here, and I'll go ahead and close that and close that. And in here, we'll also do library readxl. Got that loaded. I guess I also need to load the tidyverse. And let me move my face up out of the way so you can kind of see what's going down here a little bit better. And great. So the function to read in an Excel workbook is readxl, or read Excel. And again, if I hit tab within quotes, much like RStudio, it will pop up all the files that are in the directory I'm currently in, right? And so I want the national fossil carbon emissions. Hit that. And then I know that what I want is the territorial emissions tab, right? And so that is an argument. And let's go ahead and the tab, what is the argument name for the tab? Sheet. So we'll do sheet equals, and it was territorial, what? Emissions. All right. And for some reason it's, yeah, there we go. So now when we read that in, we now see on the right that there's a bunch of stuff and it's not happy, right? And I think it's getting this header material, as you can see here, as the columns and rows for like the first 9 rows. And then we see Afghanistan down here, right? And so we're going to want to skip a good number of those rows. And we're gonna, I think, want to skip the first 11 rows and start on row 12. So I think there is an argument in here that we can do skip. Yep, that's this argument over here. So we'll do skip equals 12. And I think I did it wrong. All right. And for some reason, it does not like to. For some reason, it's not running the full thing. And I think that's because I've got all these weird symbols in here. So the software I use to live stream has hotkeys to go back and forth. And the problem I'm running into is that my hotkeys put text into this. There we go. Okay. And so now what we see is, I think I read in too many. So I think I want to skip 11. There we go. So now we've got the first row of data starts at 1850, and then we have the countries going across. So I'm going to now go ahead and use a select function to get the columns I want, right? So we'll do select, and I can use select to also rename a column. So I'll do year equals, and then period 1. And then I'm gonna want, what am I gonna want? I'm gonna come back here. So I want China, US, EU27, Russia, UK, and other. So I'm gonna do China. I think I can just write China. I can do USA. I don't need the quotes. I only need the quotes if there's something weird in the name, like those periods, or if there's a space. EU27, UK, and also do world. And I also need Russia, right? So UK doesn't exist. I know it exists. So let's come all the way over. It's probably United Space Kingdom. Yeah, United Space Kingdom. Okay. So that's a case where we'll want to put it in quotes because we'll do United Space Kingdom. And so stylistically, if I put 1 or 2 in quotes, then generally I'm going to want it in quotes. And this is also a good opportunity to rename things, right? So we could rename things with like the rename function, but in their figure, they use US. And so I'm going to maybe call this US instead of USA. So the US equals USA, and I'll go ahead and put these names in quotes. Again, for consistency of appearance. And I'll also go ahead and put these on separate lines so it's not flying off the right side of the screen. Running that, I now see that I've got year, China, US, EU27, United Kingdom, Russia, world. And of course, in the plot, it's UK, not United Kingdom. And so now we've got our data, right? And China is NA for a good many years. And this is getting me wondering if I'm wondering if this is why they started at like 1950, because they don't have data for China. But back here we see China is included anyway, but it's basically 0. And so what I think I'll do is replace those NAs in China with 0 values, because what I want to do is create that other column, right? To do world equals China, or world, sorry, other equals world minus the sum of those columns, okay? So let's go ahead and change the China data here from NA to 0. And so with that, to do that, we can do a mutate. And I think it probably wants, worry about, where'd it go? All right, so we'll do mutate China equals, and then I'll do if NA, no, not if NA. So I'll do if else is.NA on China. So if it's NA, then I'm going to put in a 0. Otherwise, we'll put in China. Running that, I now get zeros for China's. So you'd only want to do this type of thing if you were confident that the NA is a 0, right? If it's that, like, you know, they didn't collect data in 2020, but we know there's lots of carbon emissions, then you probably wouldn't want to do this, right? You'd probably want to come up with some other type of scheme. But if it's not 0, it's, for our purposes, pretty close to 0, right? And again, this is what the data look like. And coming back now, what we want to do is go ahead and get that other category. So within that same mutate, we can go ahead and do other, and then I'll do world minus, and then I'll put in China plus US plus EU27 plus Russia, and I'm missing UK. All right. So now we get that other column, right? And I don't need this world column anymore, right? So we could go ahead and drop that and do that with like minus world. And the names here are a bit wonky, but I probably could have created this mutate without renaming things. And so I only would need one select function, but who cares? It's like one line of code here, so that's not a big deal. All right, so again, now we're going to want to think about how we will create this visualization to get, let's see, let's try that, Mike. So Mike says, replace NA is useful. So cool, let's do that instead of my wonky if-else statement here. So I'm going to go ahead and copy that and comment it and plop that in. And so I knew there was a function. So if we do replace NA, so the replace NA on China with a 0, okay? Yeah, so that gets us the same result as we had before. It's a more, I would say, elegant function that we're going to be using. So cool, thanks for that, Mike. Great suggestion. So I'll go ahead and remove that if-else statement. All right, so again, thinking about our plot and our aesthetics, how are we going to make this? So yeah, how are we going to make this? So we could, my mind instantly, when I see two panels next to each other, gets to thinking about using a facet, right? Like using like facet wrap with two columns in one row. Or if we've got two panels, we could also do this with patchwork. And I'm kind of thinking, I've been doing a lot of facets, so let's try to do patchwork, okay? And let's see how that goes, because I think we can do everything that's in here with patchwork. I'm not as familiar with patchwork. I only use patchwork whenever I'm basically making figures for papers where I need multiple panels. And so it'll be good to practice that. So let's go ahead and give that a try. And so let's start on the left plot, and then we'll make the right plot. We're basically going to rough these in initially, and then we'll use patchwork to composite everything together. So yeah, that'll be good. And I'm going to call this CO2 data. Actually, it's not CO2 data yet, is it? Let me hold off on that thought because I'm not ready to plot. And so I guess where I was getting with plotting, right, is that the year is going to get mapped to the x-axis, and then the carbon dioxide data, this stuff over on the right, is going to get mapped to the y-axis. And then we're going to want to map the country or the region to the fill color, right? And so we need 3 columns. So we need a year column, a country or region column, and then a CO2 column, right? So to do that, we're going to want to do pivot longer, and we'll do pivot longer everything but year. And so if we run it like that, then the default it gives us is year, name, value. And so I'm going to say names 2 equals region, and then values 2, I'm going to call it C for carbon, right? And let's see, now we get all this. Yep. And I'm not sure what's putting in here. All right. But we need to multiply the C by some factor to get CO2, right? So we'll do mutate CO2 to be C times whatever we had in this workbook, which was 3.664. It's 3.664. And again, we could do, we could drop out the C with that select minus C, and that then gets us our year, region, and CO2. Cool. Now we've got our CO2 data. And if we look at CO2 data, we see effectively what we just had, right? Wonderful. And yeah, so we're gonna call it CO2 data. And I don't like to have kind of a function hanging there up there on its own. So I'll go ahead and put that in. And it's probably gonna do screwy things with my indenting now, but okay, there we go, we're good. All right, so let's make the left-hand plot. And to do that, we will go ahead and do CO2 data. We're going to pipe that to ggplot. Our aesthetics on the X, we're going to put the year. On the Y, we are going to put the CO2. And then on the fill, we're going to put the region. And then we'll do geom_area. And we'll run that. And so for all my bad mouthing of this plots window, here we go. We've got our plots window, which is fantastic. And so if I open up the plot, this again is the left-hand plot, and we can see that it is starting to look a lot like theirs, right? Like the overall shape is pretty similar. A couple of things I notice right off the bat are different. So first of all, the units and the scale on the y-axis are different, and of course the x-axis is different, right? So and then the order of the regions is different, right? Like so, like other is in the middle here rather than say like up on the top. So let's go ahead and worry about the order first, because that's a bit more tricky, I find. So the order is going to be the same for both panels. So because it's going to be the same for both panels, I'm going to go ahead and modify it back up here where I'm defining CO2 data, okay? That way I won't have to repeat the same function, which it's going to be factor, over and over, okay? So we'll then take region and do factor on region, and then the levels, it's going to be a vector, and there's a small enough number of them that I don't really have to worry about writing them out. So China, US, EU 27. So I'll do China, US, EU 27. And then I think it goes UK, Russia, other. Is that right? UK, Russia, other? Oh, no, Russia, UK, other. All right. That's why we check. All right, so I'll move that over. And all right, there. And let's go ahead and put this on separate lines because it's already running off the right side of the screen. And so now when we make the plot, we see we've got China at the top, and then it goes US, EU20. So it's the opposite of what I want it to be. And so there is a transformation that I think we can do, but I'm not going to worry about that because I think it's just going to be easier to do it in here where I'm defining the factor, if that makes sense. So to do that, we can do rev around that vector of levels. And so now what we get is other at the top, followed by UK. Yep. And then green is Russia, EU27, US, and China. Okay, cool. Let's go ahead and match the colors, okay? And yeah, all right. So to match the colors, we're going to do scale, fill, manual, and we'll do breaks equals, and it's going to be these values. And you know what? I could create a variable. So I'll do regions equals that, right? And then I could take regions and plop that in here. And then for my breaks, I could plop that in there, okay? So let's make sure this works. Region, I've got to load regions, right? All right. And then that still works. All right. And so then for breaks regions, then we want values, right? And so here then we want to insert the hexadecimal for the different regions. Let's see, right. So we're going to do it in positron. And I did finally put my digital color meter in here. And so we're going to start at the bottom and work our way up, right? And so this darker color is China. And we'll put that in there. And then we want to do the US, which is this oranger color. And plop that in there. And then we want EU27. And then the UK, or no, the next is Russia. It's there. All right. And pop that in. And then the UK is pretty thin over here on the left side, right? So I'm going to grab it from over here. So back in the industrial revolution, the UK produced tons of carbon dioxide relative to everybody else. Of course, it pales in comparison to what we're producing today. And they're not producing very much at all anymore relative to everybody else. So I'll plop that in. And then we need to get our color for the other category, which is this gray color. All right. And I'll plop that in. Great. And I'm trying to adapt to the way that positron wants me to stage my arguments for the automatic indentation. So let's go ahead and run that. And so now we see in the lower right corner that we have the colors that they have. Wonderful. Looks good. Let's go ahead then and modify our CO2 levels, right? So we're going to, it's in gigatons, and so I think we need to divide our values, which I think are megatons, millions of tons, we need to divide it by 1,000. And so that's very simple to do. We can come back up here. We're calculating CO2 and divide by 1,000. And so now we see, again, in the lower right corner here, our scale goes 10, 20, 30. And if I get rid of my face, you'll see it doesn't go up to 40 like theirs does. So I'd like to have mine go from 0 to 40. So let's go ahead and do that. And so to do that, we can do scale Y continuous. And we'll do limits from 0 to 40. And we'll do breaks. It'll probably get the right breaks, but let's force it. And I believe it is going every 10. So we'll do breaks, seek 0 to 40 by 10. And so again, now we see in the lower right corner that it is going from 0 to 40 like theirs is. And yeah, okay. So the next thing on the x-axis, again, our data starts at 1950, not 1850. And I think one of the people that emailed me, I think was right. It would be good to have both panels go back to 1850, but I could also appreciate that by focusing in on like the last 70 years, you get more separation of the data, and it's maybe easier to see how these different countries relate to each other. So anyway, to go back to 1950, I'm going to add that into this pipeline for creating the left-hand plot. I don't want to remove stuff before 1950 from everything because the right side of the plot still needs that older data. So in here then I'll do filter year greater than, maybe equal to 1950, and pipe that then into the rest of everything else. And we now see, yeah, so it goes back to 1950 up through 2023 or whatever, right? One thing I'm noticing is that the grid lines do go, The grid lines do appear on the left and right side of both panels, but but there's no space on the bottom, right? So we talk about this a lot with like the expand argument. And so with scale Y continuous, I can turn off the expand. So we can do expand C 0, 0. And what you'll see now on this bottom plot is that there is no space on the bottom and that the 40 is at the very top. I could imagine much like theirs, okay? Cool. I'm gonna go ahead then and also add in scale X continuous. And again, we'll do limits equals C 1950. And then I'll put in NA. So the NA allows ggplot2 to pick the upper limit for me. And then we'll do breaks from seek of, we'll do 1950 to, I'm gonna do 2030. It doesn't matter if it's too big of a number. And we'll do it by 20 years, which I'm pretty sure is what they're using here. No, actually, no, over here on the left. Yes, they're going by every 20 years. Okay. So we'll go ahead and run that. And so now what we see, right. I did from 1950. So that what you'll see is that it starts at 1950 and goes to 2010. Theirs starts at 1960 and goes to 2020. All right. So I need my breaks to start at 1960 and go forward. And so now you see that we've got that 1960 going up to 2020 on the right. Okay, great. Now what we want to do, I think is, I don't know exactly what the expansion should be on the edges, but I'm going to just kind of put something in, right? So we'll do expand, and let's do like 0.2 and 0. Okay, that got to be really wide. 0.5. 0.3. I think that's getting, so we can use the toggle in the plots tab. And so I can see as I'm getting a smaller expand, I'm getting less space on the sides, right? So let's put that at 0.02. Oh, and that did not, or let's try this again. Oh, it's because I've got this silly symbol. All right, let's try it. Okay, so I'm going to leave it there at 0.02 for the expand, and we can adjust that later. So again, looking at the left panel, we see that we have a clear background, and we only have the horizontal grid lines. So let's go ahead and implement that. And so we'll go ahead and add theme, and we'll do panel.background, and we'll do element blank. And then we'll also do panel.grid dot minor equals element blank. I'm going to hold off on implementing the background first to show you what all these steps do. Sorry, this should be underscore blank. Okay, there we go. So that got rid of the minor breaks, right? So like you can see the change here, right? So let's get rid of the vertical grid line. So we'll do panel.grid. And I always get these two confused. It's going to be major.x, I think. Element blank. Yeah, so that got rid of the vertical grid lines, and now we have the horizontal grid lines still in there. Good. And they're currently white, whereas in here they're a grayish color, right? And I'm going to say that it's the same color gray as the other category. And so what I'll do then is say panel.grid.major.y equals element line, and I need a comma up here. And we'll do color equals this kind of color. And then let's go ahead and turn back on, turning off the background. And all right. There we go. All right. And comparing that. Cool, right? The tick marks, I notice, I'm going to say that they don't have tick marks on the y-axis, that what we're seeing is really the grid line coming through. So maybe I'll turn off the y-axis tick marks and change the color of the x-axis tick marks, right? And so we'll do axis.ticks.y equals element blank. And then axis.ticks.x equals element line. And that's going to be the same color that we had up here. All right. And there we go. So we have those tick marks, or those lines. And I'm noticing, I think that the 40 line is getting thinned a little bit, probably because it goes beyond. And so what we could do is up the limit on the y-axis to say like 40, 41. And so now that 40 line, hopefully you can see, get rid of my face, and compare those two, is a little bit thicker. So anyway, let's now think about the text is, excuse me, the text on these is a darker gray. And yeah, so, all right. In here then I'll do text equals element text color equals, let's say like gray 30. And maybe it could be gray 40. And I'm not totally sure that I'm getting the gray in there for my text. It seems odd. So maybe we'll come back to that. Another way to do color for like gray is if the hexadecimal, so that's like DA is for the red channel, the CD is for the green, and the C3 is for the blue. If we have the same letters across all three channels, then you get gray, right? So if I do like, if I do like 444444, that's a gray color. It's a dark color. Let's do 888888. Get something like that. Yeah, I don't know that it's incorporating my text. Actually, it is. It is getting the text in the titles, but not in the text. Interesting. So if I do axis.text equals this, and maybe that's where I will, yeah, okay. Hold off on this for now. All right, now if I run that, now I'm getting that gray color, but I probably want it to be those 4s. Or maybe I'll do 6. All right, we'll hold that there. Okay, and I don't need these labels, right? The year or the CO2 or even the region. And so I can do that with labs. So do x equals null, y equals null, fill equals null, and that'll get rid of those labels. Cool, right? Good. And that's because they put the unit as like the title, right? So for the title, what is it? It is annual GT CO2. So we'll do annual GT CO2. And we're going to want that 2 to be a subscript, right? And that T should be a lowercase. Okay, but let's run this like this. And so now we see that annual GT CO2. And I'm going to try to do this with a sub HTML tag. And so that then, to get that subscripted 2, then in plot.title, I want to use element markdown. And to use element markdown, I need library ggtext. And so we now see we've got that subscripted 2 below for the CO2. And welcome, Hassan from Marshall. Great to have you joining us. Let's then go ahead also and get that to be the same color as our text. And so I'm going to go ahead and move this plot title up here to kind of organize things a bit better. And I want the same color. All right, there you go. And I am not using the font that they are using. I'm not totally sure what font that is. I feel like it is probably Franklin. Let's go to their website and see what they're using. So, of course, this is just an embedded image, But if I go to their story, which I think is, yeah, here, and scroll down, here's the plot, right? And so what I could do is like highlight that, inspect, and then look for something like the font family. And it says inherit. Okay, that's not a lot of help. And let's do computed font family metric web. Interesting. Okay, so is there a Google font like metric web? A Remo? Does that look like that? Oh, I don't know. Let me grab some text and put that in there. So China accounts for I'm trying to look for something distinctive on these. So like the A is kind of distinctive with the little tail, and the T has a little cross piece, right? Yeah, that's not what that looks like. I'm going to go with Franklin and call that close enough. Again, to bring in another font, we're going to need to use show text. So we'll do library show text. And we'll then do font add Google, Libre Franklin, and then the family is going to be called Franklin. And then it's going to be oh my gosh, I'm spacing. I know it's opts something. Show text opts. Yeah, DPI equals 300. Show text auto to get it all loaded. All right, and now down here, I'm gonna not do that. Do family equals Franklin. All right, and so that gets us the same font, or I won't say the same, but I think a similar enough font to what they are using. And I'm going to be good with that. And I'll go ahead and shrink the size of, the GTCO2 needs to be in parentheses. I'm going to go ahead and shrink that as well for the title. And so we'll do like size equals 12. And right, that needs to be in parentheses, right? Okay, so that's what that looks like. It's hard to see if it's like the same as theirs, but we'll get there eventually, I think. Let's do two more things with this before we go and look at the right-hand plot. So first, let's turn I guess we can turn the background to be the same color as theirs. Again, grabbing this digital color meter and copying, and in here then we can do plot dot background, and then that's going to be element rect fill equals that. I'm not sure what just happened. Okay. Oh, I put a plus sign in. I'm not seeing the error message, which, oh, there it is. I'm not sure what that's doing. All right. If I hit escape, I'm kind of stuck. But I put a plus sign instead of a comma. So let's try that instead. Okay, now we get the plot with the background. It is putting a white, has a white background on my legend. I I'm going to get rid of the legend. But while I'm thinking about it, maybe what I'll do would be like legend.background equals element blank. And so now you can see that the legend no longer has the background, right? But like I said, I'm going to get rid of the legend, and we'll do that up here in geom area. I'll do show.legend equals false. And so that's gone now, right? So again, what we're doing is building the left side plot. And I'm going to mess with the sizes of things in a bit. One final thing I notice is that my title is left justified on the panel rather than on the plot. So let's get that moved over, and then we'll move over to the right side. So we'll do plot.title.position equals plot. And now we can see that that's left justified on that left digit, okay? Cool. All right. And let's now go to the right side of the plot, all right? As I go through here, feel free to holler with questions. Again, what I'm going to be doing is taking the left side and the right side, and then I think, at least as long as this is taking it, better work, mashing them together with patchwork. So I'm going to call this left plot. I'll call it left plot. Get that loaded. And now what we want to think about is the right plot, right? And so we're going to start that with CO2 data. And it's been kind of weird, so I'm not sure what that's about. Okay, CO2 data, there we go. And again, for this right plot, again, thinking about the aesthetics and how we're going to map things on the x-axis is the year, which we previously had. The y-axis is the cumulative historical share. And then we're going to fill it with the country. And so we're going to want to pivot things longer to get it tidy. And I'm thinking about how to get that cumulative historical share. And I'm thinking maybe I didn't want to get rid of that world total, but it's okay. We'll be good without it. That will probably group by year and then get the relative abundance of the 6 different regions, okay? So let me show you what I mean. So we'll go ahead. So it's already pivoted longer, right? So then let's do mutate, and I want to get the relative. So the relative for each year, and then get the cumulative. So let's do mutate relative CO2, and we'll do CO2 divided by the sum of CO2. So if I do it like that, it's going to look at the relative CO2 for each country in each year over all countries in all years. But I only want it to be within each year. So then I can do dot by. Forget if it's dot by or straight up by. We'll do the experiment. And then we'll do by year. And so that worked. Great. We now have the relative amount, right? So for like 1950, we see that UK was 62 and EU was 28, which if we come back to 1850, we see that EU was about half of UK, which is more or less what we have, and that the US was about half of the EU. So I'm confident it did what I wanted to do. All right. And so now what we want to do is to get the cumulative relative CO2, right? So now we'll do mutate cum relative CO2. We'll get that with cum sum on relative CO2. And here we're going to do that by country, right? So for each country, we're going to get the cumulative relative CO2 over all of the years. And, oh, it's not country, it's region. All right, there we go. And good. So now what we should be able to do is pipe that into ggplot. AS, the X is going to be the year, the y is going to be the cum relative CO2, and the fill will be the region. And then again, we'll do geom area. And that's what we've got. And I think I did these in the wrong order, right? Because if I'm looking at the cumulative after I do the relative, then basically we're going to get things adding up to the number of years since 1850 rather than adding up to 1, right? So I'm going to go ahead and flip these lines, right? So do it by region. So like take the US, look at its cumulative relative CO2, its cumulative CO2. So I have to change these labels, right? So this will be cum CO2 and then cum relative CO2, right? So we're going to go for the US. Let's get the cumulative CO2 production since 1850. Do that for all the countries, and then go by year to get the fraction, right? And it's upset probably because of my copying and pasting. Cum relative CO2. This should be cum CO2, not CO2. And I don't have relative CO2. This should be the sum of the cum CO2, okay? Great. There we go. And so now we've got our cumulative CO2 production, and that looks pretty good. It's in the same order as theirs, which works because we used a factor to create that CO2 data frame, right? But we've got different colors and different theming, right? And so I'm gonna, for the moment, well, I'm eager to like implement the colors. So let's go ahead and copy some of this stuff over. So I'm going to copy over the scale fill manual and get rid of that extra plus sign. And so now we see that looks a lot like theirs, right? Good. And then what was the next thing that we had in here? The scale Y continuous and the scale X continuous. So let's go ahead and grab the scale Y continuous. And we have it go from 0 to 41. Theirs goes from 0 to 100. And so, so my relative is a fraction, right? So I can multiply this by 100 to do that. That's probably the best way to do it. And then my limits, I want to go from 0 to 100. And my breaks are by 50. So 0, 50, and 100. So I don't need that seek function. I'll do a vector 0, 50, and 100. And there's no expansion on the top or bottom there. And so, interesting. Interesting. So don't know if you can see it, but there's like striation in the other. And that is because these are actually adding up to more than 100, right? If we look at the console, I'm getting a warning message that a bunch of rows got removed. And again, that is because, where are you, plot? Go back to plot. Now I can't find the plot. I like rag on plot so much, and now I can't find it. All right. The way to get it back is to rerun it, and there we go. Okay. I guess that's under session, right? So what to do? So, and this is happening because there's like rounding errors, right? Like it's probably not 103, but it's probably like 100.00001, right? So one way to do with this would be to add in here like scale, or sorry, chord Cartesian, and then do clip equals off. And what that will do then, it's not what I wanted. Right. So I could add the limits then to chord Cartesian, because scale y continuous removes things that are outside of the limits before plotting it, whereas chord Cartesian plots it and then kind of masks things out. So I think that's what I'm going to do here. So I'll go ahead and remove the limits from scale y continuous. I also don't think I need clip then, if that's the case. So then we'll do ylim on that. And there we go. And again, it's imperceptible what's up there. And I'm going to leave the clip on because if I need to see if there's a difference with clip equals off. Like, you can't tell a difference, right? Like if you compare that to this, yeah, you can't see a difference. So I'm going to go ahead and turn off that clip. And we're good. Okay. Again, what was happening back here was with scale y continuous, if a value is outside of the scale range, it removes the data before plotting it. Whereas with chord Cartesian, like we have here, it plots the data and then it removes anything that's outside. It basically crops it. It crops it to 100, right? Is perhaps the best way to think about it. All right. And then, yeah, cool. So that worked for y. And now let's think about x. And so this is where we brought in the years and played with the expansion, right? And so let's do that. And so here we want to go back to 1850 forward. And so this is going to be 1850 forward. And this is going to go every 50 years. So again, I could write in those 4 years, but I'll do 50. And there we go. We've got those 4 years matching theirs, right? Cool. And then we could bring in the labs and just kind of slowly working our way through this. This then is cumulative historical share as a percent. So we'll do cumulative historical share as a percent. And that gets us our title for that panel. And so now we want to go ahead and bring in the theming. One thing I have there is the legend. So let's go ahead and do show.legend equals false. Gets rid of that off on the right. And let's go ahead and bring in the theme. And as I'm doing this, perhaps you're like me and you're wondering like, man, I'm repeating a lot of code. And that gives me kind of the willies, right? And so there's our plot that looks a lot like theirs, right? Nice. And so as I think about that, like that repetitious code, I wonder if there's a way in patchwork to use the same theming for everything. Or I could like make my own theme. And as we go through here, we'll start thinking about that. Okay, so I'm going to call this, the first one, what? Left plot. Let's make sure that's loaded. I'll call this right plot. All right. And so it doesn't show up here, but if I do left plot, that pops that open. And if I do right plot, that opens that. And it's giving me some flack about my left plot removing information. I wonder what that is. Let me get that message back. If I go back to the console, warning, removed 6 rows containing missing values or values outside the range of geom area. And I wonder if I want to do the same type of thing that I did down here, the right plot with the left plot. So let's go ahead and do that. So I'm going to go, okay, left plot, right. And I had chord Cartesian here. So I'll go ahead and put this up here. And the ylim was 0 to 41, right? We'll get rid of that. So does that give the same error? This was left plot. And I think I saw the same message. And I don't want to be worried about this, but I kind of am. I'm wondering why it's doing that. If I do like clip equals off, then it doesn't error. It doesn't give me a warning. No, it does. Huh. Well, I'm not going to worry about it for right now, just because this video is going kind of long already. So Renz asked about the thematic package. No, I've never used it. There are, I think I've probably said this before, but there's a lot of packages out there, and they all want to make your life easier, and I'm sure they do. But that means learning the package. So I don't want to I don't know about the thematic package. And so I often wonder, I feel pretty good about knowing how to use the theme function. And so, whatever. But I'll definitely look into that, and thanks for the suggestion. So this warning does make me a little bit nervous about what's going on. I don't entirely know what it's doing. The only other place that I have a limit is here for 1950, but I wouldn't have any years before 1950. I'm not going to worry about it. All right. All right. So now we want to bring these two panels together, right? So again, session, we've got, that's the left. And then on the right, we have that, right? So we have this on the left, this on the right. And to get this, we're going to add the title, the subtitle, the caption, and then also try to figure out how to get a common legend for both panels. And then we're going to clean things up. So let's do it. So I don't remember how to do this, except that I want to do like library patchwork. Okay. And then I know with patchwork, I can do left plot plus right plot, I think. And so if I run that, what do you know? I get my two patches right next to each other. Awesome, huh? So if I then save that to my PNG, again, it's warning me about those 6 values, which I don't know what they are. I'm gonna try not to worry about them. But if you've watched enough of these videos, you know I most likely am worried about them. That's the original. This is what we want. And again, I'm going to double click to get that to open and minimize this on the left. And so here's where we are, right? We're getting there, but we have some work to do. So one thing I notice is that there is another layer behind both of these patches that is white, because I can see like a thin white line behind it. And I'm not totally sure what the boundary is on both of these plots, but we'll get there. Something else I notice is that like the top edge on these two plots is the same. And for whatever reason, it's different here. And I think that's probably because I've got that 2 subscript. And so I'll probably need to add a little bit of margin below this title on the right to get this grid line on top to align with this grid line on the left. And of course, I'm noticing that this grid line is pretty thin, and I think it's getting clipped. So if I think I said I wasn't going to clip it, but if I go back here and do like clip equals off on the right, then that is like full thickness. All right. For whatever reason, no, I think it's the right color. Okay. Cool. All right. So let's dig into patchwork. So I'm going to have to open up the patchwork tutorial vignettes, right? So patchwork, R package. and composer of plots, patchwork. Okay, so we've already seen this first step, the basic example, where we can add two plots together to get them to be left and right. We alternatively could use the vertical pipe to do the same thing. So let's try that instead of the plus. And that gets them side by side. Alternatively, if you did like division, like that, then they're going to stack, right? And stacking might actually work if they had the same x-axis, but they don't. So anyway, I'll go ahead and put back in that vertical pipe to get them to be side by side. All right. And so now what I'm thinking about is, let's see, aligning across pages. And I'm also interested in like the theming. So let's look at aligning. Let's see. So notice how P1 and P3 doesn't align when rendered at the same size. I guess. So we can make one of the plots align with the other by extracting the dimensions from one plot and applying it to the other. But actually, I wonder if mine do align. And they do seem to align, right? Like up here at the top, right? Like that's straight across the top, straight across the bottom. So I think they do align. I'm not going to worry about that so much. But I think that would work if, yes, if the plots had the same y-axis and I wanted them to align, or the same x-axis and I wanted them to align, or something like that. All right, so I'm not going to worry about aligning, at least not now. Adding annotation and style. I think that's what I want. So, cool. So this is a lot like what we have, right? So when I go into a vignette and I'm trying to figure out how to apply what they're doing to what I'm doing, I'm always trying to look for commonalities between the two, right? And so this looks a lot like mine because I've got, say, they've got 3 plots, but I've got 2 plots, and both of those plots have titles, but I want like an overall title, subtitle, and caption, right? And so the patchwork, as they define it, is kind of like what I have with like the P1, the left plot, right plot, and then there's plot annotation. So let's go ahead and copy this into mine, and I'm going to call my patchwork the left plot, right plot, and then I'm going to replace the title, subtitle, and caption with the overall title, right? And I think I saw this before, that one of the challenges with looking at PNGs and these tools is I can't copy and paste very easily. So I'm going to go ahead and open it up. Oh, I can't do it here either. Probably because it was a JPEG. All right. So let's see. I will go ahead and open that, put that on a different screen, and then come back over here. And I will do the title as China accounts for almost a third of current global emissions with a cumulative share of 15%. 15%. All right. And then the subtitle is going to be fossil carbon dioxide emissions. And then the caption is going to be source global carbon budget. I'm going to put a star in place of the dot. Includes carbon dioxide emissions from fossil fuels and fossil carbonates. And then we're going to want a line break, and then like copyright symbol FT. I'm going to go ahead and put in the BR tag because I'm going to want FT to be italicized. And so that BR will work with HTML or element markdown to put in a line break. And there's actually a symbol, HTML symbol for a copyright sign that we'll see if we get there. But let's give this a shot. All right, and so we've got our title, our subtitle, and our caption. Wonderful. It is scrolling off the right side of the screen. And so a question then is like, how do we add theming to this, right? So there's a tag. I don't want to worry about that. Theme, right? So then we have, we can add themes, if you can see this, with the ampersand, right? So I can do and theme, and then I can add in other stuff. So this will modify the theming of all plots using the ampersand, right? Let's see. I'm wondering how I do that to one plot. And so let's see, styling a patchwork. So most of the style of the patchwork is made up of the themes of the individual patches, right? The patchwork itself has a few elements itself that is susceptible to theming: a background, a margin, and a title and caption and subtitle. And let's see. So within plot annotation, I can add theme, and that will theme those things separate from everything else. So in here then, I can then do theme, I think, yep, theme equals theme. And we're gonna have a variety of stuff. So we'll do like plot.title equals element text box simple. And this will get the wrapping. Let's do plot.caption equals element text box simple. And I gotta spell it right. And let's look at that. And it looks funky. So we know it worked because it looks funky. Let me try that again. And open that up. Yeah, it's looking funky for some reason. But it's working, right? Like it's styling the title separate from everything else. It's not bringing in my font family. So I'll grab that. And maybe in here I'll do family equals Franklin for both of those. Actually, can I do text equals element text family equals Franklin? Get that in there. All right. And there we go. I think that is using the font. All right. And all right. I'm hoping that things just like pop into shape of where they're supposed to be. And great. Mike, thank you for that. Plot layout guides equals collect. Let's go ahead and do that. So if we do plus plot layout guides equals collect. And I think that's because I turned them off. So let's go ahead and turn them back on. So we'll do true on the two geoms. All right. There we go. Oh. There we go. All right. Now we've got our legend, right? And so it's as Mike told us, basically with the code there, it collected them off to the right. And so we'd like it to be up at the top, right? And let's see, can we do legend.position equals top. Yes, we can. But that's not what I want. Oh, that's being weird. All right. Let's hold off onto that for right now. We'll come back to that because I'm pretty sure there's a better way to do that. All right, so we've got our legend off to the right. We'll work on getting that up to the top. And the title is bolded. And let's go ahead and do face equals bold. Okay. And it could be bigger, right? Like, so again, I'm going to go ahead and save everything, quit positron, and restart it, hoping that the show text stuff and the markdown stuff will behave better upon retrying. All right, so let's see. Rerun everything. All right. No. Come on. You're killing me. That's annoying. I had this problem within positron previously, and I'm not totally sure what the deal is. So let me get this to be, say, 20%. Get this to be 20%. Those are not the same 20%. Let's put this at, no, okay. All right, so that's annoying. I don't know why it's doing that. I think it has to do with like the resolution of the screen and everything, but I'm not going to worry about it too much. Maybe what I could do would be like element text on the title, and then I could go ahead and put the line breaks in where they have the line break. So their line break is after global, and so that would be here. And so I could put in a line break with the \n like that, right? And then I can play with the size once I get that legend out of the way, right? So let's leave that there for now. And then the same kind of thing for the caption. Yeah, so let's see. Theirs is after fossil right there. And then I also have this here. And I think I'm still using text box simple versus element text. And it's left justifying it. So I want it to be right justified. So we'll do, I'm sorry, it's right justifying. I want it to be left justified. So do hjust equals 0. And so there we go. Again, it's not italicizing my Financial Times, my FT, but I won't worry about that for right now. Let's go ahead and look at the other things that are in here. And so like one thing that I was intrigued by was that I can apply the same theme to all the plots if I use that ampersand. And so I mentioned this copied code, right? So let's go ahead and I will comment this out. I'm going to copy it and then copy it and comment it out and do the same thing down here. I don't think there's any difference between these two themes, right? And let's go ahead and let's see. So that was, yeah. So let's go ahead and do the ampersand and then add that on and pull this to the left. And let's see if this works. Actually, I should rerun left and right And hey, that worked. Awesome. So the benefit there again is that I don't have to copy this code over and over between my two plots because copied code is a pain to maintain, and we don't want to copy it. There's an expression called don't repeat yourself or dry. And so this allows us to keep our code dry, and we can apply the same theming to each of the panels. So that's nice. All right, so that's cool. The other thing looking at this that I'm worried about now is the background color, because I can still see the thin white line between the two plots, and that legend is off to the right, and I want it up at the top. So let's come down and let's see, plot annotation, theme, mono. So this, okay. So within plot annotation, we could do theme. So let's try that with the background, right? So if we then in plot annotation, we do plot dot background element rect and fill equals this. Did I run everything? Yeah, that didn't work. I still have a white line kind of between each of the different parts of the plot, right? Can you see that? That white line there? So maybe I'm using the wrong argument. Let's see. A background, a margin, a title, and subtitle caption. I wonder what happens if I turn off the individual plot backgrounds here. Oh, that wasn't what I wanted. Comment that out. And look at this. And actually, I think here I want it to be element blank. So the individual plot backgrounds for the two facets, if you will, the patches, will be blank. And so that'll allow the background to come through. And this will help us to see if it's working. And it is not working. Basically, we have, let's see, we've got like no background. So something's wrong. So plot background. Let's look at the help for this. And so plot annotation, and then there's a theme. ggplot theme specification to use for the plot only. Only elements related to the titles as well as plot margin and background is used. But it's not using the background. Which is weird. I wonder if I did like red. No, that didn't do it. I'm not sure. I'm kind of thinking I want to undo this and put that back to that color for the individual panels. Let's make sure that worked. Okay, but again, I still have those lines. And so it could be a couple things that I can imagine. So there could be a white border on my individual panels. I think that's what it is, because element rect allows you to change the fill color as well as the border color, right? So if we do plot background, fill equals that, and if we did like color equals this as well, then I wonder if it'll go away. That what seems like a white space. Let's see. And yep, sure enough, that white line is gone. Cool. All right, gaining on it. So I think one of the last things we want to do is move this legend, and let's come back up to the articles maybe. I don't know why the background wasn't working. I'll have to look into that. I don't know if somebody knows, feel free to throw it in. Legend direction equals horizontal. So let's, okay, let's give that a shot. Mike is coaching me through this. So I'm putting my life in your hands, or at least the next 13 minutes. All right. And so guides equals collect. And then do I put it here in here? Nope, it didn't like that. Let me maybe put that up here within the theme for the plot annotation. So we'll do legend position equals horizontal. And then, oh, sorry, legend direction, horizontal, legend position, top. And it's putting it below my titles, and it's not doing the horizontal. But maybe I need to do legend direction inside of the plot down here. Let's try that. Okay, that made it 2 rows. I wonder if I put legend position top within the theming down here, if it'll behave better. Nope. So I know there's a way to make it 1 row. So let's go for our quick wins here. And I'll do theme, and it's going to be down in legend, right? Legend direction and by row, whatever. Let's go down to the legend stuff. It's all alphabetized. Legend direction, where are you? Horizontal or vertical, by row, location, box just, box spacing. Let's go to Google. And we'll do ggplot2 legend 1 row. Let's check this out. So in guides, color, guide, legend, and row equals 1. That seems reasonable. And I wonder where I have to add that. Can I do that here? Let's try that. And it's going to be fill. Hey. Oh, that didn't work. It worked. It did exactly what I told it to, but I need to add that. That's adding that to the right plot, right? I wanted to add it to both plots. So let me go ahead and cut this, and then we'll add that here. And again, what that is doing is it's modifying the guide for my fill to put it all on one row. All right, so now we've got a single row. Good. We can play with the formatting of the key later, but it's below the title of those individual panels, which is not where I want it. So let's see if there's something in here. Within controlling layouts, controlling guides. Okay, so that's what Mike was saying with plot layout, guides collect, guides auto. All right, let's see. Want more? No. So let's look at the plot layout. And shows guides. Collect, we'll collect guides below to the given nesting level, removing duplicates. Keep will stop the collection and let the guides be alongside the plot. Auto basically figures it out. If you modify default guide position while also in collecting guides, you must apply that change to the overall patchwork. See the example. All right, we'll do that. So let's come down. Where are the guides? So that's kind of what we're doing. Like legend position bottom. Legend position top, right? Like that's what we're doing already in here. But for some reason, it's putting the legend in the wrong place. All right. Maybe what I will do as a hack, or not a hack, but just giving up, would be to put it at the bottom. It's not ideal, but it's what I can do right now. So again, instead of putting them up here, because I don't know quite how to put them between the subtitle and those two titles, I'm just going to roll with that. And yeah. And for some reason, my title isn't respecting my line break, which is odd. I don't know why. Oh, this is disappointing. Legends normally sit below, the plot title. And so in this case, it's not doing what we want. And it's not using my line break in the title, but it is in the caption. So let's see, plot title, element text, element text. Yeah, I don't know. That's weird. One thing that, there's a lot that bugs me. I don't want these to go more than 2 hours, and we're just about at 2 hours here. Actually, if you want me to keep going, let me know, and I will keep going. Let me see if I put in the BR. And actually, let me do element markdown. Let's see what that does. Hey, that worked. Okay, now we're cooking with corn oil. All right, let's use element markdown for these things. Get rid of the \n, put in the BR. And now Ah. Oh, why? Why can't you just be good? All right. I was really hoping that would work. But it doesn't. All right. Maybe I'll make that caption text and put in the line break. All right. And so we can boost the size of the font so that global is over more towards the right. And so that was in plot title for the overall patchwork assembly. And we'll do size equals 15. Okay, we can be bigger. Let's do 20. It's not changing. Oh, there it goes. Nope, that's not it. Let's see. Now it's not taking my font size. It doesn't like using element markdown for some reason. I don't know. That's annoying. Element, text box, simple. Does that work? No, it's not working. Oh, how annoying. All right, let's put this back to element text. And again, I don't know why it's not using my line break. And yeah, it's not using my line break. I don't know what to say. This is frustrating. Keep going. All right. Make the titles annotations instead. So Syed, thanks for joining from Somalia. All right. I will try to keep going because I pulled an all-nighter writing a grant proposal and I don't really want to do my real job today. So I'll do this instead with you all. All right. So I don't know why it's not working. And I don't know why the legend isn't legending. All right, let's do the legend first. I have an idea. Mike suggested make the titles annotations. So let's do that. Yeah, let's do that. So to do that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to expand the y-axis limit. Maybe have it go up like a common percent. Like maybe have it go up. So if it went up like 5 gigatons, basically, then that would be 1/8, right? So which is like, let's say 15%. So we'll add 15% to the y-axis on both of these. And I will remove the title, right? So let's come in here. And so for our scale y continuous, I will multiply 40 by 1.15. And down here, I'll go, 100 times 1.15. Oh, I got to do both. Did I do that right? Oh, I just did the breaks. Right, so this needs to go up 1.15. And then did I do the same thing up here? I did. Okay. I didn't want to do the breaks. I want to do the limits. And so the limit on the y, let's do 40, which is what it's supposed to be, times 1.15. And so now we've got that extra space. And so I'm going to then take that title and put it in that extra space. And actually what you now see is that the tops of those two plots align with each other much better. All right. So we'll now go ahead and plop that title down in as an annotation. And so let's do, obviously, one at a time. And so I will do annotate. Annotation? No, annotate. Geom equals text. And we'll do x equals. And so we're going to need the x position. So the x position is going to be to the left. What is that? That's going to be like 1950 is here. Let's go back to 1945, 1940. Let's do 1940. And then y is going to be at, say, 43. And then text is going to be this. So plop that in. It should appear twice because I still have that lab in there. It is unhappy, and I put text rather than label. I knew it. This. And so it isn't showing, and that's because I've got my clip set to on, right? And so clip equals, well, no, I've got clip equals off. That's 1940. Let's go ahead and put this to 1960. See if that changes anything. There it is. Oh, because it is left justified. It's center justified rather than left justified. So it's off the left side of the screen. All right, so let's go ahead and put that back to 1940. And we want it to be h justified. So we'll do h just equals 0. Oh, and I think it's clipping it on the left side because I don't have a left axis limit. So in chord Cartesian, I could take this and do xlim equals that and remove this. There we go. All right. So it's too far to the left. Let's go ahead. And it's also, it's not using my markdown. And I'm worried that I can't, if I do rich text, will that work? Hey, that worked. Nice. I have to get rid of all the rich text junk though, right? So, but it does show my subscript. Where were you? Right there. Okay. And then let's also do vjust equals 1. Okay. Let's do... okay, let's leave that there for now. And then we want to bump it over to the right a smidge. Let's do 1943. Okay, let's split the difference and do 1941. Let's do 42 because that's what I did. All right. Cool. And then we want to get rid of the margin and the label. And so I forget the arguments. Let's see. Forget the arguments for geom rich text. And so we've got label padding and margin and R. So we'll do label dot padding equals I guess unit C0000, and we'll also do label R, I believe is the thickness of the border. No, that's the radius. Oh, it's going to be like the something like the label color. Um, huh. Let's look down here. Label color is what we want. Or we could do label size. Let's do label size and we can set it to 0. And so that's still there. Okay, let's change that to label color. And we'll do NA or NA without quotes. It's still there. Let's see if I go back to label size in the help. Width of label outline. Is there anything down here that tells me what to do? Maybe if I do unit 0. It's still there. Oh, let's see. Right. This is getting tedious. Yeah, for some reason it's not behaving. So I think the annotate isn't working. If I do instead like geom rich text, I need to get rid of that N. I could do like data equals tibble, and then what? X equals, or year equals 1942. And then like, I think it was CO2. Yeah, it was the Y. CO2 equals 43. And let's pull this in. Label, that's the label. I think this should work. I don't know. I thought a lot of things would work though, right? So units is missing. Let's see, where did I put units? Oh, label padding. Region not found. Oh, right. Let's see. That's because my tibble here doesn't have a region. I'll just do region equals US. Oh, but that's then filling it with the US color. Let's do... What happens if I do... I'll do label fill. Or fill equals NA. Yeah, so that gets rid of the background. Great. So I think that's how we do it. It wasn't working well with annotate. So, but I like the styling of this title. So let's see, we had down here, we had plot title, we had the color and the size. Okay. So we'll grab that and plop that in here. That's our color. The size isn't going to work, I don't think, because the geom rich text is from ggtext. It's not from ggplot2, and so that size unit isn't going to work. So let's do size equals 3. And it's small. Okay, let's bump it up a bit to do, say, 6. Okay, that's too big. Let's go to, say, 4.5. Okay, maybe 4 point. Let's do 4. Okay, let's stop there. And let's, we need to bring in the font actually. So we'll do family equals Franklin. And then the X position, the year, let's make that like 1943. Okay, I think that's good. We'll probably fiddle with the sizes later, so I'm not going to mess with that. So now what I can do, because we added it in, is to go ahead and make the title null. And this is still way up because that's there. So now let's go ahead and do the second plot. And so I don't have to go through all this again and annoy you all. I'm going to copy this down. And we'll grab this title and use that in place of what I have here. Now, for the right-hand plot, I don't need to use geom-rich text because there's no rich text, but I need that for the subscript, okay? And, oh, it's upset. Oh, because I use CO2 instead of cum relative CO2. So, again, I'm making this fake tibble to get it to plot stuff in there for me. And I put the y-axis, I did all sorts of things wrong, but it's there, right? All right, so let's go ahead, excuse me, and let's reposition it. So we probably, well, let's think of again in relative terms. So for the left-hand plot, my y position was 43, which is, what's 3 divided by 40, right? It's that scale above. So it's probably like, I don't know. My brain doesn't work right now. I can't do the math in my head. But we could multiply 100 times 43 divided by 40. And it should be in the same y position. Which it is, right? And then we want it to be left justified. So maybe like 1850. We'll start there. Okay, so that's at 1850, but we want it left, right? We want it to be right on that 1 of the 100. And so let's go to, say, 1840. And we lost it. And that's probably, again, because of the scale x continuous. The limits is within it versus having it within chord Cartesian. So we'll do xlim equals that. There we go. And so now we can keep nudging it to the left. Let's do 1820. Okay, that's too far. Let's do 1830. And that's pretty good. Okay, now we can get rid of the title. Once you get one figured out, it's easier to do the others, right? And so we can turn this title into null. Very good. And so now what we want to do is we want to put this up at the top, right? And so we did put it at the bottom, top, good. I wonder if when we added the y, we did like 15%. Maybe, maybe we should go up. What happens if we go up 5%? I could turn this into a variable, which would make it a lot easier, but hey, whatever. I appreciate people sticking around. That's better. Right? And again, I don't know quite why the element text box simple isn't working. Except it might be So I've got plot stuff in my theme that I'm applying to everything. And I've also got theme up here. So if I remove this title stuff now, now it is listening to my, now it's listening to my, that's interesting, to my plot annotation. So I wonder if the problem maybe has been, in part, that I put plot annotations before theme and then I did theme after plot annotations. Why don't I go ahead and move this up here? Does that change anything? Not really. Okay, good. So we'll do that. And then for plot annotations, once again, for title, let's try element text box simple. And let's make that 20. Okay, it's not writing over it, so that's cool. But it's still too big. If we do 10, now it's not paying attention again. Oh. I didn't see the error message in the bottom right corner. The title theme must be element text object. Foiled once again. So let's do element text. Title and theme element must be element text object. Is that what I've got? That's what it is. Element text. Do I have plot title somewhere else? No, that's it. Let me comment this out. So it's still complaining. Okay. This is weird. I don't know why it's complaining at this point because I don't have title in here anywhere. So that's null, null, title. I don't know. So Patrick is being pretty annoying here, and I'm not really sure what to say, what's going wrong here. And let's see, if I do left plot, okay, and if I do right plot, that works. I'm not getting any error messages or warnings is really what I'm looking for. So let's step these together. Let's go a line at a time. That works pretty well. That works. Call that patchwork. Call that patchwork. It looks funky because it hasn't gathered the legends together, right? So then if I take patchwork down to here, no warning messages. And if I come into here, now it should complain. It complains. If I remove the theme stuff entirely, it still complains. If I remove the title, let's see, if I remove, yeah, if I totally remove plot annotation, go back to console, it's giving me lots of warnings. Ah. All right, it's upset. And I don't know why. I'm going to go ahead and take that and apply that up here maybe. Maybe when I moved things around, it freaked out. By doing that, the warning messages went away. Okay. Now let's bring this back in. I think it might be like a order of operations type of thing. I don't know. I don't know what to say. Maybe I think I saw elsewhere that you could like wrap those in parentheses. And so that's gathering it. Okay. And then if I bring that back in, bring back in my title. No warning messages. Doing better here. There you go. Okay. All right. But it doesn't like element text box simple, as I recall. Oh, no, it's not complaining. Ah. Oh, bother. All right. Let's take that back to element text. It is respecting my line break, which is good. So let's go ahead and increase the size. Let's go up to say 15. That's better. And I'd like these to be the same size, but for some reason they're not. Let me reopen my images. There we go. So my font could be a little bit bigger. So let's go up to say 16. I think that's pretty good. I'm not going to put in that segment at the top. But so we'll need like a margin. So let's go ahead and do plot title, and we'll do margin equals margin T equals 20. It's probably too high. Let's take that down to say 15. And we need more separation between the lines. So let's open up a line here, and we'll do line height 1.2. That's pretty good. And then our subtitle needs to be not so black, right? So do plot dot subtitle element text color equals let's do gray 40. And it could be bigger, so it should basically come to cumulative, the end of cumulative, right? And so we'll do subtitle size equals 13. It could be bigger. Let's do 14. Bigger still. Let's go up to 15. That's pretty good. It's probably too big, but whatever. And then we need some space, right? So let's add a margin to the top of that. And again, we'll put this on a separate line. We'll do margin equals margin T equals, let's try 4. Okay, we need more margin. Let's go up to say 10. I think that's reasonable. All right. I don't know how you all feel about this. I can't see how many people are still on. So anyway, even if I'm talking to myself, this is good. So the font size for the legend could be bigger and perhaps the same gray as the subtitle. And the key in mine is square, whereas in theirs, they're rectangles. So let's work with the font first. And so that is going to be in the legend. So we'll do legend.text equals element text. And we'll then do what? Size. Is there something that we can look at as being like a similar size? I think it's similar in size to the y-axis and x-axis text size. But I don't have that size there. So let's do size equals 10. I think that's pretty good. One other thing I'm noticing is that it's at the top, but it's also at the left. So if we do legend position and then legend dot justification top, we can do left. And that should pull it over to the left. And yeah, it's pulled to the left, but I think there's a margin to the left, right? So I think we could do legend, is it box? Margin equals margin, bunch of zeros. Nope. Let me do legend margin. I think it pulled it a little bit more to the left. I forget what the argument is. It's like legend dot, let's look through these. Box margin, box spacing. I think what I often do in these cases, I don't want to mess with it too much. So this is top, right, bottom, left. Let's do like minus 10. And that should pull it over to the left as we see, right? We want it to be left justified with the titles. Again, I don't totally know why it's, is there a padding? No. All right, let's do minus 15. That's pretty good. Let's get our text to be the same color as our subtitle. And that was, what did I use? Our subtitle was gray 40. So in our legend text, we'll do gray 40. Okay. And I'm noticing like my font weight, even my regular fonts, seems to be lighter than theirs. And we've talked about this before, that like when I bring in the Franklin font, I could do regular weight, and you'll see kind of in the blue, oh, if I got rid of my face, regular, come on, tooltip. It's not popping it up. Anyway, the default is 400. So if I make like regular.wt, let's try 500 and rerun all this stuff. Then my font, you can hopefully see, is a bit stronger than it had been. Okay. Yeah. And I think the font could still be a bit bigger in that legend. So I have 11, 10, let's do 11. I think that's pretty good. So the key height needs to be smaller than the key width, right? So we can do legend.key height, and this then is a unit. And so my font is 11, and I think that should be the height, right? So if I do unit 11 points, now I've got the shorter height, right? Kind of like theirs. I think mine could be a little bit wider to match theirs, and also just to show you how to do it. So do legend key width. Let's make it say 15, make it wider than it is tall. And that didn't quite do as much as I thought it would do. Let's go up to say 20. That's good. Cool. There's not much spacing between these. And so what I'll do is maybe add a right-hand margin to the text. And so again, back up here, legend text, I'll do margin R equals, let's say 30. Okay, that added way too much space, but that's the idea. And so let's see, I had 30. Let's do 15. And then I noticed on the left it took it away. So let's do L equals 5, or yeah, 5. Okay, so that's the idea, right? So I think the left is good. Maybe it could go down to 4. And the right could be 8. I want 4, not 45. Yeah, we could probably drop it a little bit more. Let's go to say 6. And I think that's pretty good. All right. And so then the bottom margin, well, we could put a bottom margin below the subtitle. And so let's do B equals 10. Maybe 8. I'll call that good. Cool. And now we need a margin between the legend and the plot. And let's do that in the legend. So legend margin. So again, this is like top, right, bottom. Let's make that 10. Yeah, that's like, wow, amazing. It just worked. Sometimes things work. And I like the size of the font for the titles, like annual and cumulative. But we need some spacing between those titles and the plot. And so I think we had it at 0.05. Right? Maybe let's take it up to 10%. And we'll do that for this one up here as well. Again, this is where having like a bump parameter that we're multiplying everything by would be nice, because then I only have to change it in one spot. Again, this goes back to that idea of dry and why it'd be good to keep things dry. So that got us our space, right? So I like the distance between like this grid line and the legend, but we need to move our title up a notch, right? And so that was in the geom rich text. Let's see, I put it at 43. Let's try putting it at 44. And then this will be 44 divided by 40. So I need to rerun both of these blocks. I think that's pretty good. Our fonts on our axes need to be larger. And so we'll do axis text equals element text and size. There's something that I grabbed the size for. I forget what. Maybe it was for the legend. I like that legend size. That's kind of the same size. So that legend text was 11. So let's do 11 here. Not sure it did it. Let's try 13. It's not doing it. Why aren't you doing it? Is it giving me an error? Ah. Formal argument access text. So I must be using it somewhere else. Ah, right there. So when you get this error message, formal argument access text matched by multiple actual arguments, that means you're using it twice. So I thought I had. So we'll go ahead and put that there and remove the second case. And it's probably going to be too big, right? Yeah, it's a bit big. So let's take that back to 11 to match the legend text size. And again, the font isn't the same font that they used. That's pretty good. I think what we want to do is move our titles to the left a smidge because it's no longer left justified. And so we'll go back to the first one and let's do 1942 as the position. That's good. And now let's do the second one, which was 1830. Let's go to 1825. And that's right, justified pretty well. There's subtle differences I see as I'm toggling back and forth, but on the whole, I like it. And okay, let's look at the caption, and then I'll be happy to call it good. I think I have, Mike, I just saw your comment. I think I have the legend justification top left. What happens if I remove that dot top? Yeah, I don't think that, I think I'm doing that already with the legend justification top left. All right. Now, yeah, the caption, right? And so I know this is like a fool's errand, but I'm just going to try element, text box, simple. Yeah, it didn't work. Let me try element markdown. That's like the next best thing, right? Still doesn't work. All right. Let's do element text. And it's black. We want it to be the same gray as our axis text. And I think maybe just a notch smaller, right? So let's see. So that was here with the text. So I'm going to go ahead and grab this and throw that in here. And let's try 10. I'm feeling like my font, that gray 40 that I was using, is maybe too dark, but I guess I can look to the fossil. The fossil is at the right edge on the original. I can make my font a bit bigger. So let's try 11 after all. And that's pretty much where we want it. Could probably be like, what happens if you go to 12? Does it go off the right side? Yeah, it goes off the right side. Let's try 11 and a half. Yeah. Whatever. I'm going to make it 11 because it just seems weird to go all the way right to the border. And good. So now we can make, again, the line height bigger. And let's go ahead and put in a line break here, and we'll do line height equals, let's do 1.2. And that's great. And I have done all this work. You all have stuck around to watch. I'm actually pretty impressed by how close I'm getting this. And so to leave that star annoys me. So I think I've done this before. If we do like Unicode, solid black circle, is this. So let's go ahead and copy that Unicode symbol. And I will put that here. We don't want the plus, so we want the \u. And I think maybe it's a lowercase u. It's not happy. Oh, why can't you just be happy? So I could use like the HTML, but we're not using Markdown, right? Let's look at this. No. Let's see. What happens if we put like an oh, I don't know what to try. Let's try this. I don't know why that would work, but nope, that didn't work either. Let's try our Google search again. Or we could try one of these others. So I think I did 25CF. What happens if we do like 8F? Nope. Oh, bother. Circle symbol. Oh, I know what I could do. This is like cheating, I think. So medium black circle. Let's try not cheating first. No, that didn't work. Okay, the cheat. I'm going to copy that and put that there. Nope, it did not like that. Yeah, I don't know how to get that. Like this is the black circle I'm trying to get. Yeah, I still get that slash. All right, I give. Put in the star. And let's run that again and see what it looks like. Looks like that. So it's so close. But I think I'm going to call it there. I don't know how to get the italic. Like, there is ways to get italics in R without using Markdown. It is a royal pain. So I'm not gonna worry about it just yet. I think we've gone on long enough. I think one final thing I'll do, just because it will annoy me if it doesn't annoy you, is that the ticks on their plot are ever so slightly longer on the x-axis than mine, right? So I'll go ahead and add that. So that's axis.ticks.length dot x, and then you can do like unit, and let's do like 5 pt. And so those are longer. I'm at a different zoom level at this point, but I think that looks pretty good. I'm going to call it there. I am sorry that I am not, I feel like I'm throwing in the towel here on the caption. We've gotten so close, but we're just not there. We ran into this with positron a while back, like maybe 3 weeks ago. You know what? I'm going to try one last thing because there are people that are watching and I want to give this to you. I'm going to reopen this in RStudio and see if it works in RStudio. All right. So we'll do that. So I'm launching RStudio here. All right. Let's rerun everything. Make sure it works. No warning or error messages. I'll open up my PNGs. Let me get them to be close to the same size. All right. And here I see like how far I'm off. Actually, there's probably a little bit of a margin between the caption and the text. So anyway, okay, what I want to do is let's see if it's a positron versus RStudio thing, right? And so let me just clean this up a smidge. And so I wanted the caption to be element text box simple. So that worked, right? It could be like phase of the moon or who knows what. So we also got the Financial Times to be italicized. So let's do what we were doing here, right? It was like \u, what was it? 25F, 20CCF. Still not happy. Let me try pasting it in. Where am I? Okay. My mind's already gone to another possible solution, so getting a little distracted. Okay, so I still have that slash. Okay, the other solution I had, the other idea was to insert the HTML, because I think we saw that here. And so the HTML is this. So let's try adding the HTML, because we're using HTML now, right? Did that work? No, that did not work. Huh. I don't know why. So we need a break here, and then the copyright. For the copyright symbol, it's this, or copy, right? So we'll replace that. So that got the copyright symbol. I'm going to try something like that back here. I think I saw clubs. That's not working either. I wonder if copy works there, or if it's something about the text. So that works. Let's see if there's other full math reference. I don't know. I'm probably beating a dead horse here. This really isn't important, except it feels like kind of a moral victory I'm trying to achieve here. Let's see. All right, I will just do, let's see, what is it? Let's try that hex. I feel like sometimes not all hex symbols are recognized. Oh, maybe I'm missing the X. Nope. Okay. Yeah, it is not like whatever symbol I have to put in there. So I'm going to, again, fall back on that and leave that there. I don't care at this point. I'm kind of annoyed. Let me see if I can get the line spacing right. So do 1.3. Let's try 1.4. Let's take it to 1.5. I think it's probably 1.5. That's good. And then we can put some margin to the top of our caption. We'll do margin equals margin, t equals 10. Let's go up to say 20. Okay, 30. Oh, that's too far. Maybe it didn't actually do it the last time. And I think that is pretty good. You'll notice that like the text for the axes is not quite right. But that's, okay, that's going to be, I promise that's the last thing I do. Okay, so we'll get that down, and then we'll increase the margin above the axis text X. So axis text here, axis.text.x equals element text, margin equals margin, and then the T, let's put it at 10. Oh, where did that come from? All right, comma. That's maybe too much space. So let's make it 5. All right, let's go to 7. Oh, too fast. There we go. And I think that's pretty good. All right, I'm gonna call it there. You all have been so good to me by sticking around and watching thus far. As I did this, I went down a deep of a unknown path, I think, using patchwork, and maybe found some parts of patchwork that weren't behaving the way I'd hoped it would behave. So my version is on the left, theirs is on the right. Theirs is a bit pixelated. I think that's because I went through a JPEG to a PNG, but whatever. On the whole, I think in the end, we got it looking pretty good. I'm actually very happy that Mike and others pushed me through to try to get this to look as good as it does. And there's little things, of course, like the font is different. I think the font color that I'm using for a lot of the elements is probably too dark. There's this blasted circle that I can't get to work. I don't know why Positron was having a hard time with Element Text Box Simple and Markdown, but RStudio wasn't. So anyway, I'm not going to worry about it too much. As always, I will post this code to a blog post, and you'll find a link to that blog post down below in the description for this video. Thank you very much for watching an extra hour basically with me. We will be back next time to generate another visual. Hopefully it won't take as long, but hey, we'll keep at it. And again, perhaps you can also see the beauty of ggplot2 as a package and how a lot of the things in it just work really nicely. It gets used a lot. It gets a lot of testing from all sorts of people. Patchwork, I don't want to throw it under the bus. It's a great package. We're trying to do some things with it that are kind of weird, right? And so I think that's all good. And I think certainly like kind of the order of operations in some of this may have been some of the problems I was having with the title. I don't know why the legend wanted to go under the plot titles rather than above the plot titles, except that that's what it naturally does when you make a plot and you put a legend at the top. It puts it between the title and the plot itself. So we found a solution to that by putting in geom-rich text, and life is good. So again, thank you very much for sticking around with me and watching as we did this. Please tell your friends about what we're doing here on Code Club. At the beginning of the episode, I did comment on some of the critiques I received about this plot. I would encourage you, excuse me, let me stop talking, but I would encourage you to, if you have those types of critiques, you've got my code, or you'll have my code, go ahead and implement that and see if you can't get the right side to go back to, or get the left side to go back to 1850, kind of like the right side does. All right. Well, we'll leave it there, and we'll see you next time for another episode of Code Club.